In a dark corner of ancient history, a battle changed the course of the world. It was the year 9 AD, and in the shadowy forests of Germania, a man shaped his destiny and that of his people. Arminius, a traitor to Rome but a hero to his own, led the greatest military defeat the empire had suffered in centuries. Arminius was no ordinary warrior. He was born into an era of chaos and bloodshed, in a land where war was the daily bread. The Germanic tribes were not a unified nation. They were independent clans that often fought among themselves. This division was precisely what Rome exploited to expand its dominion over Germania. But even as a child, Arminius proved to be different. His story begins as a hostage. For the Germanic tribes, it was a common practice to send the children of their leaders to Rome as a guarantee of peace. In return, the empire offered protection and privileges. But this exchange was a double-edged sword. The Germanic children grew up far from their homeland, steeped in Roman culture, language, and customs. They were expected to return as loyal servants of the empire. In Rome, Arminius was shaped into a Roman soldier. He was educated in the best schools, learned to fight with discipline, and studied the complex military tactics that made the Roman army the most feared in the world. But what Rome didn't realize was that, while they were transforming the young Germanic boy into a brilliant commander, they were also creating the man who would one day become their downfall. Arminius rose quickly through the military ranks. He excelled in military campaigns and proved to be a charismatic leader. He was awarded Roman citizenship and granted the rank of knight, an honor few foreigners ever achieved. To Rome, Arminius was a model of successful assimilation. But in his heart, he never ceased to be a Germanic. For years, Arminius watched how Rome treated his homeland. The demanded tributes were exorbitant, the common soldiers' abuses rampant, and the constant humiliations unbearable. He saw how the Germanic tribes, proud and free, were forced to submit to a system they neither understood nor respected. When he was sent back to Germania as a commander of auxiliary troops, Rome believed they were deploying a loyal servant of the empire. But for Arminius, this was the moment he had been waiting for. Back in the dense forests of his youth, he began to devise a bold and dangerous plan to free his people from the Roman yoke. The challenge was monumental. Rome was no ordinary enemy. It was an empire that had conquered vast regions from Britannia to Egypt, with a disciplined and well-trained army. To defeat them, Arminius needed more than brute strength. He needed cunning. Arminius began earning the trust of the tribal leaders. He spoke to them of freedom, of a future where they would no longer have to kneel before the Romans. He was a passionate orator, and his knowledge of the enemy gave him an invaluable advantage. But not all the leaders were convinced. Many feared that Rome would respond with relentless force, as it had done before with other rebellions. To solidify his alliance, Arminius used his position in the Roman army to spread false information. He convinced the tribal leaders that Rome was vulnerable and that, with the right strategy, they could defeat them. At the same time, he assured his Roman superiors that the tribes were pacified, avoiding suspicion. Arminius's master plan hinged on a key principle. Geography was his ally. The Teutoburg forest was the perfect terrain for an ambush. Dense, dark, and treacherous, it was the worst place for a disciplined army like the Roman legions. Arminius knew that the tightly packed formations of the legions, their greatest strength in open fields, would become useless on the forest's narrow paths. In September of the year 9 AD, the Roman governor Publius Quinctilius Varus received reports of an alleged uprising in Germania. Arminius, with his knowledge of the tribes and his seemingly unquestionable loyalty, volunteered to guide the legions to quell the revolt. Varus agreed without hesitation. Thus began the march toward disaster. 3 Roman legions, accompanied by auxiliaries and civilians, ventured into the Teutoburg forest. The column was enormous, stretching for kilometers, with soldiers, carts, and pack animals slowly making their way through the muddy trails. The first attack struck like the roar of an unexpected storm. From the trees, Germanic warriors rained down arrows and spears, sowing chaos in the Roman column. The legionaries tried to regroup, but the terrain hindered their movements. The disciplined formations that had conquered half the world were useless in this natural labyrinth. For 3 days, hell broke loose in Teutoburg. The Romans fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered and at a severe disadvantage on the terrain. Every time they tried to build temporary defenses, the Germanic warriors attacked with relentless fury. The screams of the wounded echoed through the forest, mingling with the sound of rain and the crunch of branches under the combatants' feet. When the dust settled, more than 20,000 Romans lay dead. The golden eagles of the legions, symbols of their invincibility, had been captured. Varus, seeing all was lost, took his own life. The news reached Rome like an earthquake. Emperor Tiberius was paralyzed with shock. The loss of 3 legions was a devastating blow, not only militarily, but also psychologically. Although Arminius had achieved the unthinkable, his victory was not the end of his struggle. The Germanic tribes, temporarily united by a common goal, soon returned to their old rivalries. Even his own family betrayed him. Eventually, Arminius was assassinated by his own people, a stark reminder that freedom often comes at an enormous personal cost. But his legacy endured. He was a man who proved that even the greatest power could be challenged. Did this story inspire you? If you want more epic and astonishing tales, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video. Help us keep bringing history to life.